it's powerful.
Yeah.
And so that really helped me to kind of see what God,
That's great.
how God can take you from, whatever this is, shame, guilt, pain, suffering, can take it, can flip the script and, bring it to something totally different. So, so that was really helpful.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's great. Hello and welcome to the Mighty Oaks Show. Glad to have you with us today. Thank you once again for joining us. If you are listening to the podcast or you're listening over at Mojo 50, thank you for doing that. Take some time, if I can encourage you, take some time after the show, after this episode. Don't do it right now. Take some time after the episode. Go over to YouTube. We have other great content there. You can go to YouTube, search for the Mighty Oaks Foundation or Mighty Oaks Foundation. Probably even Mighty Oaks, but the other two will definitely get you there. You'll find our channel, and we have hundreds of videos there. This will be there. The video version of this show is there as well, but tons of other content, and we do our best to put as much as possible there. For one reason, that is to help you, so please take some time. You can also subscribe, hit the notification bell, of course. Leave us a comment. We love to receive comments and communicate with you that way. That would be awesome. And I don't often encourage you to go to our social media, but today I will. Go check out our social media for the Mighty Oaks Foundation. Again, that's the phrase, Mighty Oaks Foundation. You can also use Mighty Oaks Warrior programs if you'd like to. But look for us on Facebook. We have a huge Facebook page with lots of great content, also on Instagram and the other platforms as well. So please check that out. That would be awesome. Glad to have you here today. And today we have a special show, which I'm glad for. It's special for two reasons. One, my friends are here, and that's special. And two, they're here, and that's special. We do a lot of Zoom these days, and it's awesome to have Luke and Ann Dodd in the studio today. So appreciate them being here. Luke and Ann, if you watch this show or listen to this show, you've heard both of them at one time or another, but not together.
Not together.
But as the last name would indicate, they are together. So Luke and Ann Dodd work with us here at the Mighty Oaks Foundation and do various things. But more important to me is that we've been friends for a long time, because you guys are pretty old.
Yes,
Yeah.
we're old.
You're getting older all the time.
Every day,
In fact, your young son is getting married next month.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, the oldest son. June 25th. End of
Crazy.
June.
Kids get old.
Yes.
And we stay the same.
We stay the same.
And we stay the same, but they get old. But we've known each other for a long time. And Luke and I did a show together, and then Ann did a show with the ladies, my wife included in that. But when Luke was on, we talked about where we met. It was a long time ago.
Yeah, we was it 1-5 is when we came across, and then kind of everything's
served in the Marine Corps together. Went to Iraq together.
Yeah.
And then we've been at church together. Our kids have grown up together, and it's been a great journey. Yeah. I was gonna say long. I keep saying that. I need to stop saying that.
You're aging us. Yeah.
I'm sitting there trying to calculate. Yeah, it's coming up on 17 years.
Yeah.
Might be more than that. Yeah. I think probably about 18.
It's been a fair bit.
Yep.
One of the things we've been able to do, particularly over the last couple of years, is work with veterans and active duty service members through our programs and the various ways that we do that. And we wanted to spend some time today speaking specifically to some of the challenges, not of the individual service member or spouse, which we've done both, but of the family. And I think that is an area that a lot of people don't understand for various reasons. It's one of those things that unless you've lived through it, you probably don't understand it.
Right.
And it's important for people to understand. And I think a lot of people want to support the military family, want to support, particularly if they live in a community where there's a military base or something like that. They want to, they just don't exactly know how to, or even understand some of the challenges. Perhaps there are military families listening or watching this that are in a position where they need some resources even. So they're trying to help themselves and they don't exactly know how to do that. You guys have been around the military most of your adult lives and for the entirety of your career. So I thought this would be a good conversation to have and I think can be very helpful to a lot of folks. But before we get to that, why don't you guys, whoever wants to talk, maybe you can fight over it, tell us your story, where you guys met, how you met, and kind of your journey through the Marine Corps.
For sure, yeah. So it's I look at it as kind of looking at some of the stuff on the way over, thinking about it, and
For me, I enlisted in the Marine Corps I look at it, the Marine Corps, takes advantage of us all the time, because enlisted out of Colorado is where I came in and went to boot camp in MCRD, SOI West, and then, getting to my first duty station is 29 Palms.
Sure.
So,
sure.
you leave wonderful, beautiful Colorado to, 29 Palms.
You're saying 29 Palms is not beautiful like Colorado?
Well, not at all.
There's still mountains and stuff, though.
You could say there's mountains. You're right, absolutely, mountains, but not the mountains that,
Sure.
obviously
Yeah,
you're
sure.
formerly used to. So, but yeah, so that was 95 time frame, into, 2 years or so into that first tour of within the Marines. My roommate was, inadvertently, he was dating, Ann's roommate.
Sure.
Did not know. I think there was one time where I think he was just trying to take, I look back at it now, it's like maybe have been trying to take an advantage of a situation. I had a vehicle, he did not. So he needed to go visit.
That was the situation.
Friend. Yeah, so friend. So he's like, hey, do you want to join? I'm like, well, that sounds great,
I'll drive.
Yeah, I'll drive, but.
Are they still dating?
That's kind of part of it where, kind of met Ann, and so they dated for a little bit. So they were saying, they broke up, we got married.
Yeah.
So, and then it
all worked out.
Yeah, it worked out, and then coming up here, that would be, married 23 years coming up, actually in June portion will be 23 years. Ann and I have been married. It will be, and again, a lot of journeys between now and then, career wise, got out of, when we met, I had about 2 years left on contract, got out. We went to live in Texas, lived there for a little bit, worked for family. The old saying, working for family, completely came true. So then we moved to Washington State.
Yeah.
So we, obviously odd jobs here and there, and then, kind of going fast forward a little bit to, after 9/11, that's when, in 2002 is when I actually, re-enlisted back into the Marine Corps. Saw that, I remember that, obviously 9/11 very distinctly, because, 95 to 99, you can say that the, Marine Corps was kind of boring.
Yeah, there wasn't a whole lot going on.
Nothing going on there. So, remember that, and, coming back in, and then, going back to, that's when, you and I met in, 2002. And then that was, it was just, just a long journey, between that time frame. Just, coming back in with some of the things where made me, we wanted to kind of pick up some of the stuff. People say, why you come back in? Some of it was for just benefits. Didn't know at the time that I was going to make it a completely career.
Sure. Yeah.
It was.
It made sense at the time.
It made complete sense. And then just picking the pack back up. You're missing a lot of friends because it is a little bit different. Getting out, you don't really have that true relationship with somebody.
Sure.
It's just, it could be what one could say, superficial in a sense. But I think you build that relationship a lot deeper when you come, when you're sleeping next to somebody.
Right.
On a deployment or whatnot. So,
it's a very close. Whether you like it or not, you become very close to the people that you're with.
I think we were talking about that a little bit the other day, where on ship, you had the stateroom, and we get the coffin beds. Some
of us make good decisions in our lives,
right?
And others don't. And that's just what we have to live with.
Yeah.
We'll talk about some challenges of military life, and I think that's important to do. But and you were pretty young when you met Luke. You made the decision to get married. You guys made the decision together to come back in the Marine Corps and spend a lot of time doing that. Mm-hmm. A lot of challenges, of course. But what are some of maybe your favorite memories? Some of the things that you look back on very fondly and think, "I'm really glad we did that," or that was something that sticks out over 20-year career and a 23-year marriage.
I mean, they're not the highlights for sure, but I do think we enjoyed the balls. Those are kind of they're a unique tradition. The formality of them, I think, is really special. Yeah. So we never stayed, for the craziness usually, but it was fun to.
Because that's not special. It's just crazy.
But it was fun to get dressed up and just the formality of those. I think that's something very unique. Something we're very proud of. And then the Marine Corps, especially, all the branches have their thing, but that's ours. So. Those were special times. I think also you get a little bit of longer time off sometimes, coming off a deployment, so we were able to do more things that maybe friends of ours that had civilian jobs weren't able to do. So sometimes that was nice to get to do as well. So
yeah, that's one of the interesting things about particularly the infantry side of the military. I mean, I don't know what other jobs are like, but you're gone a lot, but you do get a lot of time at home when you're home.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's important to
I
realize as well.
The
Right?
reality is that sets in, now, out where
it doesn't work the same.
It doesn't work where you get 72s and 96s and all this, that, all those days off, and it's it is a huge reality change.
What are switching to maybe some of the unique challenges of the military family, which I think we would agree at least that when you make a decision to be in the military, you've made a decision.
Mm-hmm.
No one made that decision for you guys. No one made that decision to come back in for you guys, and that's just important. I mean, there are unique challenges, but that doesn't make the people who are living through those victims somehow.
Right.
They made a decision to engage in that for various reasons. For you, Ann, when you guys started talking about coming back in, you had already lived through some of that. You knew that there would be some challenges going forward.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly, there was going to be a combat deployment in Luke's future and in your family's future. What would motivate you as a wife to say, this is the right thing to do, and I want to support that? Because it is very much a family decision, or it should be.
Sure, yeah. For us, too, that was a very interesting time. I was pregnant with our second son. 9/11 had happened, and that really stirred, in Luke kind of a desire to re-enlist. He was missing the camaraderie, but also I think that was very much on the forefront of his decision making. So knowing I'm about to have a baby, we're probably going to be moving, he's probably going to war, that was a lot to take in.
And that's very unique.
Yeah.
Most people don't experience all of those things at the same time.
At the same time, and those are some of the biggest things we say. What are the biggest things that are hard for people in life? Those are a lot of them all at one time, So, that was a challenge. But I think I knew it was important to Luke. It was important. It was what he wanted to do. It was what he was passionate about. He wanted to serve his country, and so we did it. And it really ended up being a good move for us overall. There were some hard years there, but the move back to California led to lots of other really wonderful things in our life. So I see God's hand in all of that now, for sure.
That's good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what a challenge making those decisions. And, for the military member, it's been said a lot, but, very few 17, 18, 19-year-old young people know what it's like to fill out a will. And maybe you need to, figure out who their beneficiaries are going to be, because that's a reality for them. And those are some unique challenges. And you throw a spouse and children and all of the other things that are involved in that on top of it, it becomes especially difficult. War aside, and that combat deployment aside, what are some of what you would consider unique challenges to the military family life? And I think you guys have a unique perspective because you've chosen to live your life with a lot of military people who you're connected to, but also a lot of not military people that you're connected to through church and other things. And I think some people can get in one world or the other, but I think you have a unique perspective because you can see it. Well, this is different here than it is there. What are some of the unique things about a military family life?
I think a lot of military family life is, for us, our story is it's really kind of hard to. Looking at it now, blessed to being able to, I look at it as a great blessing to stay West Coast, minus deployment, my entire career. What I go with that is the unique challenges we all know is, every 3 years or so is whenever the monitors, they start, hitting you at the door or whatever.
The monitor's the person that decides where your next duty station is.
Right. Yes. Right. Exactly. So those guys, whoever may be, obviously, lower entry level, levels, sergeants of, you only have, you're like, okay, here we go.
Yeah.
We're moving, but as time goes, but again, I think I contribute a lot of that to where I was, stay put for, and then I made a career change. And that's where I think, like, things restarted. But I think what I'm getting at is that unique challenge and change. Every 3 years, you're making new friends. I think that's very, not, unique to a, I guess you'd say, civilian. I say that for lack of words. Somebody non-military, obviously. Every 3 years, they're not moving. They know where they're going to be. They could live and breathe and die right where they grew up sometimes.
Yeah.
Well, they have the choice. They have the
They get
choice
to
too.
decide.
Yeah.
Exactly.
They're not being told where they're going to go.
Yeah. And I think that's a great point.
So how do you develop relationships knowing that, particularly when you cross the mental and emotional line of we're staying in for the long term?
Mm-hmm.
So when it was time for me to leave, I just got out, so I didn't have to move. But when you've made the decision, we're in for the long haul, that means you're going to have to do something different.
Right.
How do you develop meaningful relationships when in the back of your mind you know you're going to leave? And then how do you help your kids process that?
I think it's kind of...
I feel like kids are inherently kind of, military kids especially are inherently adaptable and resilient.
Right.
But it can be really a challenge for them. But for me personally, I feel like initially, early on in the military career, I struggled with that. I would kind of guard myself. I would start to pull away a little bit when I felt either we had looming orders or someone I was close to did. You just naturally kind of wanted to go in protective mode. But as the years went on and I kind of saw that play out, also had a couple friends move that weren't military, and that was people I was very close to. And so, but just seeing how that played out and how the ones that were meant to stay in my life stayed in my life, and we maintained a long distance friendship, and it was fine. So I think I can honestly say now I don't feel like I withhold, the ability to have a deep connection with people, even if I know it might just be, short term. So my perspective on that changed, and I think mostly it's just more years, under the belt kind of that have led to that experience.
I think that's the right perspective, though. A lot of military families, they stay within kind of the cocoon of the military families. They live in their neighborhood on base, and that's the people they know. Mm-hmm. And they never develop meaningful relationships because they know it's temporary.
You're right.
Yeah.
But that's really damaging, I think.
Yeah, I think like you kind of said it, where we've known people, I mean, honestly, they're literally afraid to go outside the gates of the base.
Right.
I know we honestly not laughed. It's like they are, we've had it where like, hey, maybe selling something. They're like, yeah, we don't go off base. I'm like, don't go off base. Yeah, very, 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 very sheltered individuals, and I think it's unfortunate to where. They're so, like you said, sheltered right there to where all they do is know is, unfortunately, it could be damaging to live, breathe, and do everything, military related.
And that's how you end up with a 20-year career, and on the other side of it, you don't really have relationships with people. You don't have even maybe job opportunities outside of the military. Right. No connections at all because you've decided we're not going to do that.
Too much or too afraid to basically spread your wings a little bit and kind of go outside. I think a lot of I think it's very damaging along the way, to live such a sheltered life because it kind of hurts the family related in a sense because it's just a a cyclic effect where the kids they could just be sheltered so much to where they're afraid to go out and
to do anything else.
Yeah, to go out and talk to other individuals.
It's an interesting thing because I think thinking back to my time in the Marine Corps, lived on Culper Street in the Del Mar area of Camp Pendleton. And all of the people in our little court there were also deploying at the same time. Mm-hmm. We're doing a lot of the same things. So when the Marines would leave, the spouses left behind and the families left behind, there was a built-in network of people to support each other.
Right.
And that's really important.
Yeah.
But it's trying to parse out how much do I need to lean into that and where can I also look for resources and help outside of that.
Sure. Yep.
How do you help your kids? Because you mentioned they are resilient and they are adaptable, and that's true. How do you help them to remain adaptable and resilient, but also learn how to develop relationships and do all of the things that normal kids who go through a school system for 12 years or whatever would do? And I realize that that's not every civilian person, by the way. But how do you balance that with your kids? How do you teach them to do that?
I think for us, something core to that was our involvement in our church. That was kind of a constant
Right.
With so many things that were changing and fluctuating, that was more of a constant. And so I think giving them, kind of grounding them in that, our faith, and then just, the people there as an extended kind of, family of sorts.
Right.
Our church is a military kind of church, so there's a lot of people coming and going in that as well. So there was no way for them to get away from, whether it's at church or, just living in a military community, people leaving and the transition of all of that. But I think, they were able to be anchored in their faith at our church, and that was kind of a good constant for them in that regard. But I think just being open with them, I've tried, I know Luke has, of just, expressing to them that it's okay to have, those feelings. I think sometimes they have big emotions as kids who've dealt with those kinds of things of not knowing if a parent's going to come home or, I think of, a little kid. We had little kids, especially when Luke was in the wartime, trying to explain to a little kid that what 7 months is, or 4 months, or we don't know when daddy's coming home, what that is. Those are all hard things. So I think those are all very unique to the military, lifestyle, but just having the wisdom to know at what age you say what, how you explain things, to them and what they can understand, helps,
Did you get help knowing when to say what? Or was that something you just felt your way through? I mean,
probably a combination of both. I had, some good Christian mentors that, I looked to. I did get some out of the, what do they call them, like the pre-deployment briefs.
Right, sure.
They, they did, if I recall, correctly, they did do a good job of kind of explaining the unique, kind of the gear up phase, the middle phase, the readjustment phase. And I appreciated that because I think that's kind of a misconception that people outside of the military don't understand. It's like, oh, how wonderful your husband's coming home. And yes, it is, but there is such an adjustment period. Right. And then the, knowing one is coming back up in another 6 months and the gearing up for all of that. It's just that those are unique kind of, challenges to kind of navigate. So I felt like those were helpful resources to me to understand that what I'm feeling isn't abnormal. Right. And then just to, I did feel out, other people maybe a little farther, maybe a little bit older than I was, or had older kids
who'd already experienced
it, But yeah, there is a lot of feeling it out on your own, kind of, I think too. So
it's been interesting to watch over, the period probably of 20 years or so that I've been observing that some families do really well with deployments. The kids are able to reconnect with the parent who's deployed when they come back. I mean, there's always an adjustment, as you mentioned. Yeah. Sometimes it can be a severe adjustment. Sometimes families do very well, and sometimes they don't do very well. What are some of the keys from you guys' experience that you'd say that these are some things you need to do during the deployment to make sure that when we come back together, we're able to get on track as quickly as possible? And that doesn't mean necessarily that you did it right every time.
Right, yeah.
But things that looking back you'd say these are really important things to do during the deployment to make sure things go the way they're supposed to.
I think really just kind of talking. I think it's the normal to come home and be like, hey, I'm back home now. I'm doing everything, or should be doing everything, when she's been doing,
You come home and try to just drop right back into the role you left.
Right, because it's like,
without an adjustment.
I left, yeah, exactly. Yeah. I left, we departed deployment, whatever, 6 to 8 months, whatever it may be. But mentally, I'm coming home back to right here, like nothing had happened in between, But I think where I think I could say is that you need to really try to communicate, because she has been doing everything. Don't come home. Although she may want to just throw the kitchen sink at me, and who knows,
just been overwhelmed for so long.
And I think just to respect that she's been doing, handling whatever, I think, again, God, blessed us with, very smart children. They were able to help out and, do that as well, but at the same time, there's a lot of things that she was doing. So where am I going with this is the fact that I think you can't just come and expect that you're going to be doing everything again, and have that, give take, relationship to where you can, slowly turn on, the tap water to,
understand open. There is a process required when you come back.
Yes.
And it's not going to be easy.
No.
and you need to navigate that with intentional communication. That's something a lot of people miss, I think.
I think the communication is huge, and I can look back at times where we didn't do that well and how hard it was, and times where we had learned a little more and had done it better. But yes, I think him coming home, he wants to take over this role now that is his to take, and I'm having trouble relinquishing it, and feeling a little maybe resentful that he's not respecting that, how much I've been doing, and he's wanting to do his role, not feeling respected that I'm letting him do it. So I think talking through and just being honest, I feel like so much is missed when we kind of just have our expectations, but we don't sit down and have the conversation to explain.
We expect that it's going to be a certain way, but we never voice that to the other person. And then we get mad they didn't know what our expectations were.
And now there's bitterness, there's frustration, there's everybody's, angry and the kids feel it. So I can definitely, look back and see times where that was a real big mess and other times where we handled it better. So I would say I agree. Communication was huge in that.
What do you do during the months they're away? So, you come back, there's a process and maybe even some resources that can be used to help through that process. But if you're away from your little kids for, 6, 8 months, sometimes longer, it's more than just a process. Somehow you want to stay connected to them while you're gone. And how do you do that in a meaningful way? My only experience with that, I have two. One was a normal Okinawa deployment, and I could get on the phone and I could call and I could talk. And then in Iraq, but when we were in Iraq together, there were no phones or computers or anything else, right? So it was letters and coming home and saying, "Oh, it's good to see you again." A lot of that's changed, and I think changed for the better. But how do you maintain meaningful connection with your family when you're away from them?
You have to be, it's easy to say, but obviously not. You have to be intentional about it. Do the best you can when you can. For us, as you very well know, is write those letters or whatever. But again, being intentional, trying to communicate. Because I look at stuff and I see pictures of my oldest son when I came home, and that's what's in my. And I still think in my mind that's where he's at sometimes. When I've been away. But yet, he's grown and matured over time.
He's continued to live his life.
He's continued to live life. But again, I think trying to be intentional and trying to understand that to the level. I think now, again, for the better, like you stated, it is easier to stay communicated. It could be better or it could be worse. I
go back and forth on that too. Sometimes I think it causes problems.
You don't want to be that. Maybe
every little thing.
It's kind of funny because when Ann could kind of tell when I was, again, later deployments, I had the luxury, I think I said I got smart and changed into the intelligence world. And then I was able to communicate, maybe, I don't know if it was for the worse sometimes, but Ann could always tell when I was moving around because my communication would kind of stop.
And
that's when, when I would, she would, kind of worry a little bit. She told me that, but I think that, the relatively being staying, being, again, just being intentional and just kind of, knowing that their lives are still going, even though ours are, okay, I'm going to wake up and what you're going to be doing every single day here, because you do have that battle rhythm. So.
I think trying to include him as much as we can in things that are going on here so he knows if we're having a special, birthday celebration, sending those photos or, but I one thing I was thinking as I was thinking of this meeting, just the positives that I see are, it's very unique to the military to have kind of a greater appreciation for some of those simpler things, like a handwritten letter from overseas, like a hand-drawn picture your child mailed to Iraq, 2-minute phone call here, just those little things that yes, you wish they could be here all the time, but if I'm going to look at something and say it's a positive, I think that is kind of a unique thing in some ways. I really treasure like the letters Luke and I have that went back and forth, or some of our emails. It was kind of like we were dating again, while he was away. So, but for the children especially, I think just kind of keeping him in communication and what we were doing at home, so he kind of felt included in all that as best we could, helped.
Yeah, that's great. I've said many times in conversation with people who will say to me, it's impossible to have a strong family, to be a good father or wife, father or wife, father or mother, that's the other one, right?
Yeah.
Mother, yeah. Father or mother, husband or wife, it's impossible for me to be in the military and do those things because I'm away so much. And you know, what I've said to people when they've said that to me is, your family understands why you're away.
Right.
They get that.
Yeah.
What they don't get is when you're not away and you continue to act like you're away.
Yeah.
So I think that piece about being intentional, and it goes both ways.
Sure.
That's what makes it okay.
Yeah.
You're gone. We don't want that, but you are, and we understand why. But you're also being intentional with the time that you do have. When you come home, you're spending intentional time with us. You haven't been gone for 8 months, and now you're going to go on a vacation with your friends that you just deployed with.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of
Sure.
thing. The intentionality behind that, both ways, is
Right.
super critical.
Yeah, yeah, and I think you're absolutely right. As when you're home, you got to bring yourself back to the realization. You know, don't just expect. I think if you just sit on the couch, proverbial couch, and just expect everything's going to get done because woe is me. I've been gone for 8 months. I need a
Right.
vacation now.
Right.
Because it's
Right.
been, you look at it as like it's been a vacation for them back here.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
And they've
because
been waiting for you to get home.
Yeah, they've
and
been
they're
waiting for me to
excited
get
about
home
it.
to do everything. And I just you just leave it for them to do. I think that's absolutely obviously wrong.
Yeah.
And I think again, you just you need to get back into it, and just be, you have to figure out it won't be too much. Again, like going back to, you don't want to just ruin it, but yeah, I think if you just sit back and just I think that I've known a lot of guys, over my career, like, what are you doing at home? I'm just sitting there.
Yeah.
Well, that's why.
I'm taking time for me.
Yeah.
You never stop being the parent. You never stop being the
Exactly.
spouse.
Yeah.
And
You're always building something. You're leaving that. You're leaving that legacy with
That's right.
something.
Yeah.
It's your bits and pieces of me. I think we've all seen that. Was it that figure of the boxes of the dad, real dad, handing stuff to their son or daughter, or even spouse, to where you're opening up yourself, but you're building them up. And I think that's where you need to, figure out ways to do that. And I think again, a lot of that is devoted and being grounded in the Word of God and knowing what He tells us and instructs us to do.
then living that out.
And living that out exactly is
That's good.
don't just read it. I'm not saying I got it right all the time. You know, I laugh at. I think it was Chad that posted that this morning where, I don't know exactly, the animals pulling it out of the hole or something.
Pulling the sheep out of the hole.
Pulling
Yeah,
the
right,
sheep out of the hole and it jumps right back in. I'm like, I've done. I was saying that. We've all done that.
We've been rescued and we jump right back in the hole.
Right back into the hole.
Yeah.
But I think that being again, just building that. Again, we're going to be away. If you want it to grow, you have to leave again that legacy for whoever it may be.
In which that is an intentional act of
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to intentionally do what's best for my family, for the people that I'm coming back to. Every marriage has stress. The best of marriages have stress. I learned a long time ago that military marriages have unique stressors. Part of it was having been in the military, and then on the other side of it, counseling a lot of military couples. What are some of the unique marriage stresses that people from the outside looking in just wouldn't see or wouldn't understand? Not to get deep on anything crazy, but just some friction points that a military couple will have that perhaps people outside of the military don't. Again, acknowledging people who aren't in the military have their own set of stressors. What are some of the unique things that military couples go through?
I think there's just a lot of separation time in a military marriage, whether they're stateside in their training or they're doing deployments or they're working long hours or whatever. So without that intentionality and the proper communication, bitterness can fester very easily. Resentment can creep in
because of things that aren't being done or things that aren't happening.
Yeah, just expectations or or it's just hard when you feel like you're a single parent and you're married, and if you're not communicating. Again, I go back to the communication, because for us, we didn't develop that as well until probably about 10 years ago. And I think prior to that, there was just a lot of missing each other and misaligned expectations on both sides. So I think that can really be a hard part on a marriage. And then just deployments in themselves and coming back, the after effects of deployments, undealt with issues and how those kind of creep to the surface. but there's not a lot of time to deal with those always,
Right.
you know, and so that kind of just, again, you know, if there's no communication, it can just be kind of a hard, you know, lonely place to be. So I think those all have the, you know, if not dealt with properly, can have the potential to really become a poison in a marriage. But communication, I think, is really very important, and has made a big difference in our relationship for sure.
It's hard to communicate appropriately when you are together. It's much more difficult when you're not together. What happened 10 years ago that caused you guys to figure it out or to start doing it right?
I think it's just little different things, little influences here and there. You know, marriage conferences we attended with our church. You know, the right Christian mentors that pointed us to Jesus. You know, just encouragement in the right people that we surrounded ourselves with. But I think too, maturity, learning to communicate and recognize that, you know, to let go of kind of the petty need to be right in the argument, and instead, you know, not to be so prideful, and just to humble ourselves a little bit more, to listen with the intent of hearing the other person's perspective, even if that included their hurts and their frustrations, without like immediately becoming defensive and ugly. Because I think a lot of before our communication would go to the defensive and ugly, and you know, so I think just that healthy kind of communication really helped, and just having some positive. We had some really good, you know, Christian couples, you know, around us. We were in a small group with Christian couples, so we heard a lot of, you know, a lot of those focuses were on married couples. So those were really helpful, I think. Mentors, we had good examples we were looking at, not perfect, but we had people to look at and be like, hey, what are you doing that's different? That really helped a lot.
Yeah, that's great. So in terms of resourcing to do this military family thing well, you just mentioned that. So having the right people around you is super critical, I think. And again, if you isolate yourself or you isolate your family, then you're cutting off all of these people that can help you and be a resource to you. When you look at the various challenges, what are some of the resources, you know, you just talked about a few, but some of the resources that you would say are critical to a family that wants to do it right? And I think, you know, do it right. We want to have a family that enjoys each other, where our kids grow up and, you know, they don't hate each other or us, where we're living in a way that would bring honor to God, and we're living out our created purpose. What are some of the resources that people listening or watching could lean into and figure this thing out and do it in the right way?
Yeah, I mean, resources. You very much know is multiple amounts of resources out there.
Yeah, there's no limitation on resources, but what are the ones that are helpful?
I think the ones that I think that, again, not that we always got it right, but I think we're looking at it and, you know, just being able to try to spend some time, do those family devotions. You know, building in. I mean, they make it so easy nowadays to where you can, you know, app this and where you can link everything together and try to build it from there. You know, inside there, do that devotion together as a family.
Family time around the Bible.
Around the Bible starts with that, and I mean, if you center your life around the Word of God, again, I'm not saying that we always did it right, you know, but I think that's obviously what we're called to do, is center your life around the Word of God, and He will, you know, again, to, you know, grow us in the way and manner of, you know, again, that children's it just, you know, it all boils back to centering, you know, and I say humbly, back to us, not me, but us, in a sense, to where they, you know, that legacy again. But so again, just the Word of God, friends. I mean, you can't, you know, tell them what friends to choose. You know, up until a certain age, you can. Like, we don't like that one, you know?
Right.
But no, I think if you just have them,
friends for your kids, you're talking about.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. I mean, as well as for us as well too. Both goes both ways.
Friends of like faith and, you know, and values is very important. Who's pouring into us, who's pouring into our kids. I think is very important.
And I think, I mean, like you said, I mean, you know, like I look at, you know, I mean, us and our families. You know, we have that friendship, and I look at it as it, you know, again, we're not trying to, you know, and what I say is, you know, don't try to keep up with the proverbial Joneses, in a sense, because not everybody's life is going to be, you know, mirror image, you know, of that other family. But I think you just, you know, again, both ways with friends.
Just having people who are on the same journey as you, right?
Exactly.
I mean,
and I think the realization is, you know, not, I think we've had it a lot of times to where it could be a downtime in family life to where the world's coming to an end and I've screwed everything up and the kids are on the wayward and this, that, and the other. And I think if you realization of everybody has those times, it is real. It does happen to everybody, not just unique to us in our life.
We all have struggles. I think.
Bound back out of that, and again, bringing it back to the Word of God is, that's that's the foundation and resources.
Foundation, I think, is key. If he's the foundation, not that we always get it right, but if he's our foundation that we go back to, the anchor kind of, the glue that keeps our family together, then it's much easier to get back on track. So, for sure.
So church is something you've talked about, off and on through our conversation here. Someone might say, well, I'm part of this community group or this other thing. Community meaning something in the community. I'm part of this, I'm part of that. Church is just one of those things. I believe, obviously, church is different than those things. Mm-hmm. Why is church life important? And I know you guys, so I know that you have made decisions in your life from where you lived to where you work, all those things really centered around the church that you attend, mm-hmm. Which, full disclosure, is the church I also attend. But you've concluded that it's that important. What is it about church that is unique in that way?
Trying to think if I can articulate this in the right way, but I feel like everything else, you could have a community group. It's not that's great. It's not that there's that's
sure,
wrong.
Of course.
But the greater purpose of our life is never going to be met. The needs of that are never going to be met outside of God. So for us, the most beneficial time for our focus and our service and our growth for us is at church. So I think that for us is very distinctly different in that regard, because it's aligned to a greater purpose, a greater calling.
Right.
The most important, things
I think
to us and our family.
I'm doing it wrong, again, that pivotal line. If I'm doing it wrong, I need to be told that I'm doing it wrong, and you may not get that from your. I think we all understand that community group where they're like, oh yeah, it's okay, it's their fault.
They could say be nice to your wife, but not treat your wife well because God said you should.
Right, and again, if I'm messing it up, I think I look at it and you can read and sometimes like those convicting messages where you're like, oh man, I've been messing up for a long time, But I think it's that's where we get that to where we will be told, again by the Word of God, that I'm hosing it up.
Sure.
It's where we're spiritually fed and convicted,
right.
and
but also encouraged,
and
right?
Exactly. For sure.
100%.
And encouraged.
It's not about just getting hit in the face, Luke, every time you're at church. Maybe you, but
I'm just that messed up.
It's a place of encouragement as well.
For sure. Yeah. And community, and we have great friends.
And I think
there,
you hit it where the encouragement. I know we kind of go back, but again, our life, knowing it has been centered around, our church with Coastline is. Knowing that there's people here that at the drop of a hat, if I needed to, if I was gone, like I think I even did it one time. Hey, something's wrong. It's like no sooner than I know that the phone has been hung up, that they're on their way over there to help out. Yeah. If you have those lasting relationships that are again of like-mindedness, and I think they understand, and me knowing that was a little bit of comfort as well too. Those true friends. And again, there's even outside it. You can have that will of. I know the same thing with other individuals.
Sure.
That I know now that have created those military life, and I know I can do the same thing with them, but it's at a different level.
Yeah.
Of
I think knowing people are praying for you too. Yeah. We thinking back over the years, we had many deployments where I had support from church people bringing me meals. I had a baby born. Was supported in that. Our son had 2 eye surgeries. We were, our pastor came and prayed with us before that. We had several losses in our family, just, people caring and ministering to us during that time and praying for us. Yeah. We felt all of that very strongly, and that was very, very helpful for sure.
Yeah, that's great. there's some other things I'd like to talk about there, but we'll move on. It is just so important to surround yourself with the right kind of people, and that's where you're going to find it.
Yeah.
Is in a church community or Christian community, which is really helpful. I would like to talk about, as we conclude, Mighty Oaks. You guys are involved with Mighty Oaks, and you both attended as students before getting involved. So you each attended separately. Obviously we have a men's program and a women's program, so you went at different times. Now you're both very involved in the organization, but also with the programs, which is awesome. Maybe for each of you, can you talk about something or some of the things you got out of that time personally, but then more broadly, how that helped you as a couple or as a family? Now I'm assuming it helped you. If it didn't help you, then just pass right over this question. But so some things that specifically were helpful to you going through a program of other service members and veterans or spouses of those, some things you learned, and then some things that were helpful as you continued your journey together.
So I went through the program in April of 2017, and I was very familiar. I was already working. I was already working for Mighty Oaks. I will be honest and say I was very apprehensive about going. A group of women sounded very scary to me. Like
sounds scary to me too.
Group of women. So I went in with some apprehension, a little bit of guard, feeling guarded, not quite sure what to expect. Very quickly, that guard came down though, and the thing I was most surprised to learn pretty quick as I got there was that my expectation, or what I was thinking, was that I was going to come there and I was going to learn ways to fix some of the problems that Luke was having.
Right.
I was going to fix Luke. And that was a wrong misconception. And I was very surprised to learn that actually I'm going to focus on me. I'm here to focus on my relationship with the Lord. What are things I can control?
Right.
I can't control other people.
Right.
I'm going to learn about my relationship with the Lord. How to control my reactions, my responses, how to be the woman, the wife, the mother that God has called me to be. And so I think that that shift in perspective, it wasn't immediate. I got so much out of that time, but just even the years after that, and now I do help with the women's program. I get something out of it every single time I go. But I think just through that shift in perspective for me of away from trying to control all the things. We try to keep all the balls in the air, kind of thing, to, focus on my relationship with the Lord really was, very impactful and life-changing for me. Another big thing I feel like I learned during my time there and continue to is just God has used it to really radically change my perspective on suffering in general. And so that's had a huge impact.
Can you talk about that for a minute?
Sure. I feel like whether I was conscious of it or not, for many years, I lived with the mentality of, if only we get to this, if only we get over this next hurdle, if only we had this, or if only this didn't happen, more of a why me victim, mentality. And we did go through some hard times. We went through some really hard family losses. But God, through Mighty Oaks and through a couple other people and resources, I really learned that we all go through times of suffering. It's not, none of us, to different degrees. None of them are, we're not going to compete in our suffering, but we all go through suffering.
Right.
And I know coming to the other side of some of those really hard valley moments that were really, where you're kind of at the end of your rope, kind of where you're not sure the bottom, kind of so to speak, of how you can go on from here. Those were the moments I grew leaps and bounds in my faith. God used those tremendously to work in my life in a way I can honestly say would not have happened had I not gone through the difficult times. So I would not wish them. You never wish for those things to happen in your life. But just, it's changed my perspective. I no longer look at, I hope that doesn't happen, or with fear or trepidation of what's to come, because I just know it can be used by God, and I know that He's going to bring me through it. And so in that way, I think it's a very different way of looking at, the difficulties of life, even in the middle of them. I'm not saying I always get it right, but there's times where in the middle of a hard season, I just know God's using it. Like I know in the future, somehow He's going to use this, or He's working on me, He's growing me. So I lean into it a little more than I would have before. So yeah, that's been huge in my life and something I'm very thankful for.
What, just because I'm curious, what was said or done or taught or experienced at the program that gave you a different perspective on suffering?
I think probably the testimonies. They're very authentic. They're very, vulnerable. This isn't a group of people standing before you that are, telling you how to live and what to get right and, kind of in their prim and proper outfits.
Sure.
They are people who have been through stuff. It's a peer-to-peer program, and that I think is fundamental to its success because it's relatable. These are people who've walked in your shoes. These are people who've suffered greatly, who've been through things, bad things have happened to them, and they're now telling you of the hope, that they've found through Jesus and what he's done in their life. So, and I've heard it more than one time where some of the students have a preconception. They see us standing there with our matching shirts and, so happy and joyful, reacting with each other. And then one by one, we start sharing our testimony and they're blown away. And it's impactful because we always think we're the only one suffering. We're the only one going through this at home. No one can have this bad of a home life or marital problems or whatever. And then one by one, we share what God's done in our life. And I just think it's powerful. And so that really helped me to kind of see what God, how God can take you from, whatever this is, shame, guilt, pain, suffering, can take it, can flip the script and, bring it to something totally different. So, so that was really helpful.
Wow, that's great. That's great. It's gonna be a hard one to follow, but did you learn anything while you were?
Yeah, I think for me, I went. I was still active duty. I went through in 2015.
2016.
16, yeah, that's right. So I think I was at a time when, to kind of back up a little bit before that, deployment, mother passed away. Several months later, father passed away. And it was like, hitting and it's like, and then doing a lot of that stuff to where, this is all happening to me. What have I done wrong in a sense, and I think getting into being able to attend a program when I did was a phenomenal time, in my life. It was just, I say phenomenal now because knowing, like Ann stated, it's not just us that were traveling those valleys. You can't always live at the top of the mountain, because you're going to have those valleys. And I think I was at that valley, and hearing again, like I'm not trying to regurgitate what you said, but I think we all see it when we do attend a program, as far as just those valleys of a lot of individuals. You're just like, man, it's not just me. But then you look at that root of the problem, like it was me that was allowing some of that stuff, because I was, I know there's times when I know I've kind of removed myself from what I should be doing, being in the Word. I can see the times when that could have been a bad time for me, where I was at that low level. But again, attending a program, it was allowed me to turn a corner a little bit to, again, being intentional about what I know I was already should have been doing. I'm not saying that, that I knew what I should have been doing. It just hit me in the head that, hey, you're being an idiot. Just stop having those unrealistic expectations on something. Don't be so prideful that, because you're too busy watching TV to where, whoever maybe walks past a trash can and the trash is full, and you sit there and think, and you get mad because that trash is full, but you yell at somebody because why didn't you take it out? But
you're sitting on the couch.
But I'm sitting on the couch watching television.
Sure.
So I think there's a lot of stuff like that. I think that I learned that it was just great for me to apply for in my life, that again, just a re-energizing of what I should have been doing all along. But and again, still active, and seeing a lot of that stuff, and then coming back through, again, after years, away, still being taught and instructed the same way.
Yeah, that's good.
Again, the center point we all know, again, is the, being intentional about things.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. We encourage every couple that can to each come, individually, because, you said that, Ann, that people go thinking they're going to learn how to fix their spouse or fix themselves, I guess, but most spouses come thinking they're going to learn how to fix their spouse, and they realize, really, it's about me being the woman that God created me to be, or being the man that God created me to be. And so we encourage both members of a marriage, the husband and the wife, to attend, because when two people are working to become the person that God created them to be, it helps their marriage. What are some ways, if there are, that gaining that different perspective through the programs has helped you guys, together, and to lead your family and do the things you're doing?
So I will say, I don't want to give a false pretense that it was immediate for us. It's definitely taken work.
Yeah, of course.
It still takes work. It's definitely been by the grace of God that He's brought a lot of healing and hope into our marriage and our family, since Mighty Oaks. But one huge one for me, and it sounds very simple, was learning to pray for my husband, and not pray a God fix this about him prayer.
Right. Right.
Learning to just pray for his heart, pray for his character, pray even if I was angry with him, to stop and pray for him, and just the dramatic change that did in my heart of softening it in that moment. I'm not saying I always got it right, but it was amazing to me. It was one of those only God could do, because I'm very upset about something, but choosing instead of not reacting verbally and rudely, but instead being quiet and praying in that moment for him. And just God used that a lot, I think, to really change my heart. And I've been reminded of that fact, just with my kids and things too since then, just the power of prayer and how important it is. Like, a lot of things we don't have, or we don't know because we haven't asked,
right.
So God, really loves and delights in our prayers and our specific prayers. And so I think it really, that's one small but very impactful thing that has made a really big difference for us.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, I think that, again, just, applying, just, the 4 B's in a sense.
Be in prayer, be in the Word, be in community, and be in connection with your corner man, right? Those people in your life. Yeah.
And I think that is just allowing that. And then for me, it was just being able to reset and take a step back and not just try to fix something by me. It's not by me trying to fix something, out of sheer anger and whatever. It's because, again, if you just take a step back and, like Ann said, actually pray about it. And I've seen it in my life, just removing self from the equation is where it's going to change things.
I think the pride thing for both of us too. Sometimes it especially when we were already very involved in church, the pride element of not wanting people to know, what's going on or how much we're struggling. I think both of us, I feel like, now have some really good godly mentor people that know the full story of things we've experienced, and so that we can go to them and not just ask for prayer or whatever we need to. It has been really helpful. So I guess that corner man, kind of corner woman type thing, that is really important. You need to have those people that are outside of your family that kind of are willing to,
that you're connected to,
that know what you're dealing with, but who are there for your marriage. They're not going to give you the advice of, oh, well, he's a jerk, or they're for your marriage, and and your family, and they're going to point you to Jesus, and they're going to pray for you earnestly. I think that's really been a really very key too, because there was times where maybe one of us had that and the other one didn't, and there was a disconnect, you know. So I think that's very important for a healthy marriage.
That's great. That's awesome. That was a lot of stuff you guys just talked about. That's a lot of stuff. I appreciate you doing it. There are so many unique challenges for the military family, and certainly for married couples who have, on the early side, a lot of young people get into the military, marry young, and don't realize what's in front of them. They haven't experienced it yet. And they need to get connected. They need to experience the 4 B's. They really do. I mean, they need to be, in prayer, be in the Word, be in a congregation, a church, a community of like-minded people, and then have people in their lives that can speak to them. But then as you go through your life, those challenges, they come up again and again and again. Just being very intentional about those things. So appreciate it. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate you guys. Yeah, appreciate
Likewise.
you. We'll do it again sometime. We'll do it again sometime.
Absolutely.
For those of you that are watching or listening, thank you for doing that. And I hope this was helpful to you. You know someone that needs to hear this conversation. So I would encourage you to take some time. If you're listening at Mojo, this may be a little more difficult. If you're listening to a podcast, certainly you can share it. The best place is to go over to our YouTube channel, as I mentioned earlier, and share this content out. That would be awesome. If you'd like to know more about the Mighty Oaks Foundation, go to our website, mightyoaksprograms.org, mightyoaksprograms.org. You'll find us there, and we'd love to connect with you. Reach out to us if we do anything for you. We certainly want to. Thank you. We'll talk to you next time.